Hey Jack, how's it going? For the life of me, I can't get so many people to join the chat instead of, just looking at the video on YouTube, but I guess they're getting good information either way. I can try. I've just gotten a brand new computer, and so we'll see if Illustrator is even loading, but I can walk you through the steps. I think you said you had Illustrator on your computer, am I correct? Okay, well, if I don't get it working here, then we'll definitely meet up either later today or tomorrow or over the weekend, and I can walk you through some quick examples of how to use Illustrator. Once you do it, the first time, it becomes a piece of cake. Well, we got quite a few people just looking at the YouTube video screen. If you go back into the email that I sent out, there's a Hangout version of that what you're seeing right now. So you can ask questions in the chat room and everything. So if you feel so inclined, please join us in the chat room versus looking at things on just on YouTube. Okay. I'm going to start. For the most part, I'm just going to be sharing my full screen today. And then you'll hear my voice running in the background, if anything. So this is a brand new installation of SolidWorks that I'll be pulling up here. Let's close all this stuff out. So hopefully everything's still working. I think one of the things I'm going to do is create just a small part and maybe make that into an assembly. I can do a quick finite element analysis on it with some random parameters, and then have some outputs from all of those experiments. So from the creation process all the way through to testing, I'll finally render something out using some cool camera views and everything else, stuff that I think is cool. And then I'm eventually going to open up Microsoft Word and arrange things in Microsoft Word to the point that I think it looks good. And then if I can, I'll open up Illustrator and we might be able to do that as well. So I guess what I'll do here is create a new part, brand new installation of SolidWorks. It's asking me all my defaults. I'll create a part and I'll call this a pump holder or something like that. It's just something that will maybe hold a pump, and it's got a set screw in the side. Maybe in future generations of this design hour, I'll just upload a standard file that we can all work from. But I don't necessarily want you or need you to do exactly what I'm doing. Everyone can make their own part. So I'm kind of envisioning that this pump holder would have some kind of a base. And maybe this base might be, let's just say 8 inches by, well, let's just call the base 8 inches square. So I'll just make those dimensions equal. And I want the base to be maybe a 1/2 inch thick. So this will represent a 1/2 inch thick piece of metal, of steel or something. From there, I think what I can do is create a circular port for this pump to slide down into. So maybe the pump has an outer diameter of 6.5 inches, or maybe an outer diameter of 6.5 inches, and maybe I want the wall that's holding this pump to be a 1/4 inch thick, and maybe this thing will come up. Maybe it's going to come up 3 inches from the base of our of the holder. So we've got a standard part that looks something like that, and just for completeness sake, I guess I can go ahead and create maybe a couple bolt holes, 4 bolt holes here. Just give me a second, something's beeping at me here. Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, if you're curious, I am making myself dinner. Well, I'm making myself lunches for the rest of the week, actually, or well, next week. Yeah, I do that. I'm just throwing some random, very, very random dimensions on here. I'm not too concerned about what this thing looks like in the end, but I just want to have something that I've created from scratch, and something I can put out there to render. Okay, so I've got some bolt holes going around there. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna do an extruded cut. And again, if you don't know how to do SolidWorks like this, again, this is something very, very simple that I'm doing here right now, nothing too extravagant, then this time is also the time for you to ask about SolidWorks and what cool things we can do together in SolidWorks. So I'm going to add a fillet around here just to maybe, signify a weld or something, just a weld bead or something like that. 1/4 inch. It also gives it a little bit more dimension and makes it look a little bit cooler. At least that's what I think. And I'll do the same thing on the inside here. Hopefully it'll allow me to do that. 1/4 inch. Awesome. Maybe one of the things I'll do is round up the edges. And again, I'm not doing this from any sketch. I'm just pulling this out of my head as we go along. So if you can imagine with me just a circular pump, something that will pump water or something else, will just slot right down into there, and we can have a set screw on the side. Let's say maybe from the right plane. I can have a set screw or something like that. So we lock this pump in place using a set screw that goes in the side. That looks maybe 0.75. Yeah, there we go. And this set screw is 1/4 inch set screw or something of that nature. And then I'll do an extruded cut. You can have 2 set screws or 1 through both. Let's have 2 set screws, 1 on either side. So when we create the pump that slots in here, when we buy that pump, there might be a recess for a set screw to go in, so it locks it into place. I'll hop over here just to be sure no one's asking any weird questions. Okay, cool. We got a few people looking on YouTube. Again, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. If you can use the Google Hangouts link, then I'd encourage you to do so. then you can ask me questions live and on the spot. So here we have a pump holder, and I think this is actually really cool. We've created it just from scratch, and I'm not explaining all the things that I'm doing because I assume most of you have a decent enough amount of knowledge in how SolidWorks operates, or even other programs like Inventor. I'm going to put a little stamp on the bottom that says JB Pumps. Just add a little bit of extra stuff. Let's have it be an 1/8 inch deep. That's fine. And so that's my branding for my pump holder. Great. Now in SolidWorks, I can go ahead and set the material. The reason I'm going to set the material versus just set an appearance is so when I conduct some experiments on this part, some finite element analysis on this part, I can then use the built-in properties of all these materials for that. Now, if you're going to do any heavy analysis, by all means, learn how to use ANSYS or approach me and we can walk through some ANSYS tutorials. But right now, I'm just going to go with the plain carbon steel. I change the appearance just a little bit. And so I will, at this point, save it because if you use SolidWorks enough, you know you should be saving pretty much every other minute. Let's open up there. Thread your set. Okay, thread your set screw holes. Okay. If I wanted to, I can throw on a cosmetic thread, and this will actually show up in prints. So I can have a quarter. I'm looking for a 1/4 inch something or the other. Got 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 28. 1/4 inch 20 is pretty standard in aircraft. And so we'll do. So it won't actually show a thread, but it'll be notional and fast enough. If I went ahead and put threads in there, I'd actually be bogging myself down. I'd be slowing the computer down, creating all those different faces. But that's how you do it. That's how you create a notional thread. And when you make a print of this thing, it actually shows up as a call out for threads. And I should have done the exact same thing on the other side. So cosmetic thread over here. Fantastic. Oh, it was giving me like a standard set of callouts for threads, but same thing, same difference. You just throw that on there and it says that it's threaded. Let's take a look what we've got. Okay, I hope that satisfies your curiosity, Jack. You could go ahead in there and draw a spiral path and then sweep a cut along that spiral path, that helix, helical path. That's quite simple to do. Again, more work than I absolutely need. So that's notional. And in some instances, you can turn on a setting in SolidWorks that'll show you the cosmetic thread. And I just cannot remember where that setting is, but I know it's somewhere. And it'll show you a representation of a thread. But anyways, there's our pump holder. And it's right now in plain carbon steel. And so the appearance that I'm seeing right now is directly out of SolidWorks. And it's what SolidWorks thinks carbon steel looks like. Now, the reason it doesn't look all super cool and shiny and stuff is because we're still in just regular old SolidWorks, where the design of the part is more critical than the aesthetic appeal of the part, I guess. That's one way to put it. But we'll get past that pretty quickly. Now, maybe my company, JB Pumps, we paint our pumps, or we have powder coating on our pump holders, and maybe it's white or maybe it's red. Let's go red for crimson, or red for OU, crimson for OU. I'll pull out my appearance tab. So this is this little ball over here on the right side of SolidWorks. Forgive my tiny screen. It's a 4K monitor, so it is sometimes way too small. But I'll bring down my appearances, and this just says color, and it's the color of the part. And if I bring that down, I can look at plastic appearances, metal appearances, painted appearances, glass, whatever you want. For this particular situation, I think I'm going to go into painted and powder coated. And I can double click on aluminum powder coat. And lo and behold, it's actually changed this to a powder coat finish. Again, it doesn't look super cool because we don't have all the rendering stuff turned on in SolidWorks, but it'll work for what we need it to do right now. So we've got powder coat on there. Now, if I want to make this a red powder coat, I can hop over to the display manager right here. I can right-click on aluminum powder coat. The display manager just kind of gives you all of the colors and shades and effects that are applied to your part, just all the display stuff. So I'll go in here and I'll edit its appearance. And from here, I should be able to pick a color. Now, the reason this works and the reason why it looks like it's still going to be powder coated is because there's a bump map when you say mapping style, and there's a mapping that's already applied to this to have it look powder coated. So aluminum powder coat is actually the mapping that's applied. But our color, we can make it a little bit darker, and so there is our pump. If I want to have, let's say, the base of this pump be spray painted black, I can actually do that, and I can go into painted. Car is always just like a super high gloss paint, or sprayed would be black spray paint. But let's go with a super high gloss black or something. I want to do it just for the base, so I'll just drag it over the base alone. Let's see which one of these options is best. Extruded boss, I mean, that looks pretty good. I've still got some residual parts here that need to be coated with that black, and I can go in here and just drag over their features with the black and select the feature to kind of black it out. I like that my JB pumps is still highlighted in red, so I'll just leave that alone. So we've got powder coated top. This is going to be directly exposed to the pump that we're going to bolt down in here. So we've got to have something that's a little bit more robust. So powder coating is a little bit stronger than, a little bit more resistant to wear and tear than just standard car gloss paint. And so this is what we got. I think that looks pretty cool for pump holder. Now, one of the things that I should have done before I did all of this was analyze the part, because we don't care what the part looks like in terms of color when we're running an analysis. And so I don't think I have that add-in turned on. So I'm going to go here and go to add-ins and SolidWorks simulation add-in. I've got to turn simulation on. Now, if you have SolidWorks and you've never seen this add-ins menu, there's a lot of stuff hidden in there, especially if you've got the student version from OU. I think we have access to simulation and routing and motion. We're going to also want to turn on Photo View 360. Tick that mark over on the right to have it start up with SolidWorks, and I tick the one on the left to have it start now that I'm asking for it. So I'll turn both of those on, give my computer a couple seconds to think. And there we go. I now have a simulation tab. So I'll hop over into our simulation tab. And again, I'm just running through this really quick, but if you've got any questions, you're going to have to jump over into the chat room, or you're going to have to send me an email for those of you who aren't in the chat room. I'm going to run over to simulation real quick. Study advisor, new study. If you don't know how to do any of this, again, this is your time to ask me, hey, Juwanza, I'd like to be able to do this next week or something. And that would be just absolutely fine with me. Real quick, I want to add some fixed geometry. I'm going to assume that the part is bolted rigidly to something through these holes. So I'm going to say, hey, SolidWorks, do not allow this face to go through any kind of displacement, any kind of translation or rotation. That's perfectly fixed. And that's what I'll do for that. You always have to have some kind of fixed geometry. And because it's just one part, I don't have any interferences. I don't need to worry about collisions or anything. So this makes it a lot simpler. The next thing I've got to do is apply some loads. And so I will assume that our pump weighs something like 28 pounds, I mean 30 pounds. That's a heavy pump, but hey, who knows what they've got going on in there. And then at the very same time, I can apply a torque because this pump might be connected to a shaft or something. I know the pump's not there right now, but you've got to be able to break it down into what you think the correct amount of forces are, just based on your situation. So maybe 100 foot-pounds or 1,200 inch-pounds or whatever. I mean, let's just go down to 600 inch-pounds of torque in that radial direction. And this is asking me what direction I want to apply it in. So yeah, the pump is a friction fit there. It's trying to torque this thing around in that direction. Worst case scenario is the pump would be seized up against the inside edges that we're having here, and it would cause the housing to rotate with the rotation of the pump. And you get the torque settings from the pump when you buy it. So here we go. I think that's a pretty good simulation. We got some force acting down, we got a torque acting around, some fixed conditions where the bolts should be. There is a bolt. You can define bolts and their strengths in SolidWorks. We just don't have that time today. I'm going to create a mesh, and because I'm running out of time here, I'm going to have it just be a coarse mesh and hope for the very best, hope that it works. There we go. We got a mesh instantly. And so all of these are your elements in this finite element solution. It looks like SolidWorks automatically picks tetrahedrons. You can see it getting a little bit smaller here as the holes come up. So it does a pretty good job at meshing this part. Only thing I've got left to do is actually run this study. So we're going to run it, give it some time. Great. We've got some output. If I animate this thing, we can kind of see we've got the weight of the pump acting downwards. The displacement here is exaggerated just so that you can see what's going on. It's exaggerated, what, 41,000 times or something ridiculous. And so that's pretty much what's happening to our part. We got a little bit of twist and a lot of deflection due to the weight of the pump sitting in there. I'm going to edit. I'm going to edit this graph so that our deformation is actual true deformation, so we won't see anything. And I'm going to go to PSI because I'm more comfortable with PSI. Here are the results. I think those results are pretty self-explanatory. One of the things that I'll do is hop on over to our scene, and I'll go ahead and turn the background of this render off. So I'll go in here and I'll say background, and I'll just go none. Again, if you don't know what I'm doing here, now's the time to shoot me an email if you can and just ask. That might be the best thing that you can do for yourself right now. Okay, great. Food's out of the oven, guys. We're making progress. Sorry. So one of the things that I'm going to do here is go to a standard view. Maybe I want to look at this part. I have no idea what direction I want to look at this part in. Maybe I want to look at this part from right here with all my forces and then all of my results. Okay, I'll go back into the definition of my SolidWorks part, and I'll turn on the max annotation just so we can see where the maximum stress occurs. This is actually a stress artifact. Because we've set rigid conditions here, the strain in this position gets super high, the stress gets super high, and you get a high von Mises stress accumulation in that spot. And so one of the things that we always want to do is keep the scale. If you're going to report this, of course, you're going to keep the von Mises scale over here. And yield strength of this material is 32,000 PSI. I mean, we're not even anywhere close for this with this carbon steel. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab this and I'm going to fire up Microsoft Word and paste that view into Microsoft Word. This is the beginning of the design portfolio side of things. And so from here, new, I use a snipping tool because it's super awesome super easy to use, and I want to capture all this information. The reason I went ahead with a white background is just so that everything would be nice and clean when it comes time to design this thing and put it all together. So I've just pasted that image directly in Word. And to make this a lot easier on myself for manipulation, I'll change what's called the wrapping, the image wrap. You can click on the image, go to Format. You can change the wrapping to in front of text. And so that allows you to move this image anywhere that you want to move this image. One of the other things I'm going to do is go to color. I'm going to set a transparent color of white. And so anything in this image that's white will now be transparent, and I'll be able to see through it. Now, we're not doing a report, so I don't want to create a figure number or any of that stuff. I just want this to be design focused, design centric. I want this to be aesthetically pleasing when I get done with it. So that's one of the components of this design portfolio. I'm showing my future employer that, hey, I can perform some kind of analysis on my own. And so that part speaks for itself. Now we're going to hop back over into SolidWorks, go back over to the model view. Okay, we've still got our colors. One of the things that's super important to me is the way that people perceive this part. And SolidWorks does not do a very good job at letting its users know that you can actually manipulate the camera views of your parts. Now, just as a quick example, we can pop over here, and you can see with this watch example, we've got some perspective going on. The camera's pushed in nice and close to the part. We've got reflections and shadows. Reflections and shadows, shadows and reflections. And so even this image right here is a great example of what we're trying to do with the design portfolio. So we're going to have some shadows, but we're also going to think about the way that we want the camera view or the angle to look at this part. In the future, we'll probably do a little bit of talking about photography and zoom and focal range and distance and all that kinds of stuff, perspective. But for right now, I need a new camera because this is not a flattering look at this part. It seems as if we've got a telescope and we've zoomed into this part. There's no perspective. SolidWorks allows you to turn on perspective, but even so, there's not the kind of perspective that I want. I want this to feel as if it's sitting on a table or sitting on a desk, and then there is a iPhone taking a photo of it, from a cool angle. So what I'll do is add a camera. Again, we're over here in the display manager for SolidWorks. It's right, in that area. We're going to add a camera. Someone just sent me an email. Yeah, so you can add cameras in SolidWorks. Again, right here. You can change the viewpoint of SolidWorks, for example. So a wide-angle camera would be something like a 24mm camera, or even down to like a fisheye, which is 6mm or somewhere. A telephoto or a zoom would be 70mm or 200mm. We're going to add a 24mm camera. It's wide angle, so we'll see the difference here really, really quick. And so my custom angle here would change that to 24mm wide. And so as I zoom into this part, we get a little bit of parallax error. We get a lot of perspective. All these settings here we'll talk about in the future. Being able to turn on depth of field so that we have something sharp in focus, and then as you get further along, further in the distance, it gets blurry. And all of that's pretty good. So we turn perspective on to give it exactly what it is, perspective. As you look at something, you gain perspective. As you get closer, the perspective skews the view a little bit more. We'll go to the camera view, and we will then unlock the camera so we can move it around. The closer I zoom into this thing, the more of that wide angle view you start to get. And so it looks, when we're looking from the top down, we see the walls start, caving in essentially, and giving us all the perspective that we crave in real life. Our brain can understand this just a little bit more. And so the first view I'm going to render out for our pump holder is right here. You can see the set screws, the holes for the bolts are right here. I'm not going to worry about those too much. Well, we'll go back to our scene, and we shall, okay, we still got no background, which is good. We can have a floor, which is the bottom view plane, and we can turn floor shadows on and off. In our scene, we can also add a floor appearance if we needed to. You can add a wood appearance, you can add a garage wall, the garage floor, kitchen floor. You can add all kinds of different floor appearances for your render, but we're gonna leave all that out of it. I just wanna have a shiny version of this thing from right here. Now, remember we threw on, we threw our render tools in there. We added this on as an add-in. So I'll just come down. That looks pretty cool. And from here, I'll do a render preview. So let me preview window. And so what this is this is SolidWorks' attempt at rendering this part using all of the colors and shadows and reflections of a real scene. And so it looks a lot neater. You've got shadows happening over there. The aluminum powder coat is still dimpled as it should be. And then the black spray paint is nice and shiny. So this is exactly how this part would look if I sold it right now. And so what I'm going to do is zoom out of SolidWorks. I'm still just manipulating this window back here. I'll zoom out of SolidWorks. So in my render window, I'm not clipping any of the shadows. And that actually looks pretty good. So once I'm happy with where this is, I'll go ahead and set up my options for rendering. I know it's a lot, but we'll do this a lot of times that you'll be able to ask questions each and every time. And the output format, I want to have this as a PNG. Reason I want a PNG is because PNGs preserve transparency. Anything that's white in the background of my render will be transparent. And so we've got the SolidWorks view window is what we want to render. Output ambient occlusion. This is just another shadow setting, and everything else is pretty much standard. I hardly ever touch any of those things. Good render quality, good final render quality, all that stuff. Great, 360, and we just simply hit final render. Now this takes a little bit of time. I found that my computer does a decent job of rendering things out pretty quickly, but the computers on campus are even faster. Which is a rarity, that the computers on campus are actually faster than anything you have in your home. So it's going to take a while. It's going to go through and grab bit by bit each pixel that we are rendering out, and it's going to process it. It's actually using my processor to figure out what direction light is hitting this, what shadow is supposed to show up there, what reflection is supposed to show up in that spot, what bump is supposed to show up in that spot. This part takes a little while, but we will quickly get through it. I wish I had just recorded that so we could speed through it, but we can't. I'm gonna hop over here and stop screen sharing so you can see my face for a second. I'm still here. We've got something like 10 people just looking at YouTube, and I've already gotten emails from like 5 of you guys, so thanks for talking to me. But again, it's easier if you join the chat. We're going to work on that for next week. So we're still rendering. It's still going. Basically, at the end of today, we'll have you'll be able to show your boss or your future employer, because your boss, doesn't really care about most of this stuff. Your future employer will see that you can design what he needs, a pump holder. You can analyze what he needs and say, okay, looking good for these conditions, you won't be failing. And then you can actually package it up, make it look nice and shiny, and present it to a client. And eventually sell this thing for lots of money. So I'm just double checking where our render is. We're about halfway through the rendering. This one's taking a little bit longer than usual. There are a couple hacks that I can do to my SolidWorks to make this process a little bit faster. I've got an NVIDIA graphics card, and SolidWorks doesn't like NVIDIA. SolidWorks likes AMD for some reason. And so it just takes a little while for this to get done on my PC, but I think I'm going to look into that for the future. Still going. It looks pretty good. I'm starting to see all the details come out, all of the shadows, all of the reflections. They're really in there now. And so we've got a few more minutes left on that. Cool. In the meantime, I'm going to hop back over into Microsoft Word. And in Microsoft Word, I'm going to start setting things up. So setting things up for wording and everything else. All the cool features in Microsoft Word have gotten better over the years. And so if I want to insert something like a text box, I have lots of options for text boxes, or I can even download more from the internet. But what I want to do in this text box is just give a quick spiel as to what this part is. So I'm looking for cool design. Okay, sidebar. I like that. And so here we'll call this thing our JB Pumps, which is a company. Pump Holder 101. Great. And down here I'll just go and say this design was created for the JB Pump Company in September of 2016. There was a loads analysis done to this part, as well as material created for marketing this part. Well, we can say loads of analysis performed, as well as material, blah, 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 blah. The analysis led to the classification of TR2355 being surpassed, leading to a conclusion that this part will last 60 million cycles. Something cool and something great. So we've talked about that part. Everything looks great there. Okay, hop over into rendering. Oh, we're done. Okay, our rendering is done. I'll save this image, and I'll go to our desktop. Untitled JPEG, PNG is fine. And so I'll bring that part over into Microsoft Word. Let's just get to my desktop. I can't seem to, okay. We'll bring that over into Microsoft Word. And so it's right here. Again, we're going to want to set this to be word wrapped in front of text or behind text, doesn't really matter, but it's there. And so for the analysis, I usually make my analysis files a little bit smaller. It's really up to you. And then I make my image files a little bit larger. Just because we can, I'm going to go ahead and position our rendering at the bottom here. It's kind of centered up. I love the fact that the edge of this part's pretty much pointing directly to me. It's almost beckoning. It's asking me to look at it. And we've got some really nice shadows, some really nice reflections. I want that to be nice and large. Let's go ahead and crop this down so we're not messing with the edges as we play. Cool. And so we've got some analysis over here. I may want to bring this analysis forward, bring it to the front. Right, there we go. Still not at the front. Great, there we go. And so I'll position that there. Stylistically, I think I can take this color and have it be more of a crimson to match that part. I can also, by double clicking a million times, find a way to edit the color at the bottom there. I really want that part. I just don't know how to get to it. Could I ungroup this stuff? I guess I can't. Maybe this is all, okay, ungroup, there we go. If I ungroup that, I hope you understand what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to grab this little bit at the bottom, or maybe because that's in the way. Yeah, okay, that's what it was. The image was actually in the way. So I'll move that aside, and I'll ungroup this. And I'll just kind of make that also that crimson color, just so it matches a little bit nicer. And then bring that back over. So this is, you know, this is it. This is what we're talking about. We've got a cool rendering there. I think I want to add another rendering on top of this just to give it a different perspective. Okay, I just got a question. Yes, I just got a question asking if you could put more than one rendering on the sheet. And yes, you can. You can put as many renderings as you like onto this design. I've only put one because that's all I rendered for now. But we can go back over into SolidWorks, and I can give a different perspective of this pump. That looks kind of weird, so we'll just go from right there. This pump holder, I'm sorry, it's a pump holder. And I want the JB Pumps logo to be sort of visible. I don't even know if it'll render out because there's no light in there. In future design hour talks, we're going to talk about lighting as well, manipulating lights. I can actually have the sun shining down into the middle of this pump holder. And so I'll go back into my options. I'm going to bring the resolution of this rendering down just so that it renders a little bit faster. And then I'm just going to render it and hope for the best. For some reason I just don't like, I don't even like that. Yeah, okay, cool. It's more like it. Maybe I'll shorten that up just a little bit. Honestly, I similar ways, I don't like that little bar either. I kind of like this whole rectangle that's going around my text. I do like that. So I'll keep that element. Let's see. Okay, cool. That was a lot faster, but that's not exactly what I was looking for in terms of a render. I can't really see the JB in there. So really quick to solve my problem, I'm gonna go, let's close that. I'm gonna add a light, a directional light. And I'll go into my preview window. The preview window just give me a quick preview of what I'm about to render so I don't waste my time rendering it and then not having it be exactly what I want it to be. So I've added a light. You can see that that light has added a shadow into the corner, which is actually kind of cool. I do like that. If I turn on these lights in PhotoView 360, we'll get additional shadows. Shadows all over the place. I don't like that one. I can edit this directional light. And we can see the light showing up there, but I can change the longitude and latitude to have it pointing down into, right, there we go, down into my pump holder. I will maybe turn its brightness up ever so slightly. So I want to illuminate the inside of this pump holder. And there we go. Fantastic. We're illuminating the inside. Everything looks great. Yes, I'm going to render this out. I'm going to position that so I'm not cutting off the shadows. Final render. I'm rendering fewer pixels. That's why this one's going a lot faster. The quality is not as high, but it's definitely good enough for Microsoft Word and for laying out your design portfolio. Sweet. We'll save that image. Please give your file names usable names or useful names. I have a bad habit of just having everything be untitled. We'll hop back over into Microsoft Word, drop that image in place. Oh, it didn't place. Alternatively, I can copy it and paste it. I'll click on it, change the wrap again to in front of text. And so that's another look at our part. I want this large one at the bottom to be at the front. And I want that smaller one. That smaller one, actually that makes a pretty good little icon right there. Great. Fantastic. Oh, it did paste. Would you look at that? So we've got analysis, we've got rendering, we've got an icon. I mean, something else, something that you can do is just go into SolidWorks and we'll go back to the original camera view. Let's go turn off the camera view. We'll go back into SolidWorks, bring the file up, and I will just do a screenshot of SolidWorks. This might be too much information for this one sheet, but I mean, who knows? Maybe you want to add some of that information to your design portfolio. Maybe not on every single page, but yeah, I just did the print screen command, and I just created a screen capture. Now I'm putting it in place here, and then that's too small. I don't like the way that it fits up there. Let me send it to the back. Just kind of have it. We can potentially have it floating back to the. No, I don't. I really don't like any of these options. So get rid of it. It's no big deal. And so in really quick order, we've created something really cool. You can go ahead and, this is a whole lot of class by itself, but making drawings and all kinds of stuff. We can go ahead and do a quick drawing for this and have that be a part of this page in our design portfolio. Okay, we've still got 9 people streaming. Thank you guys for hanging out. I'm still wrapping this up, so remember you can email me questions. JB Pumps, there we go, that's pretty cool. There, and there's a basic 4 view. And so I'll position that there. I'll position this here. And position that there. And of course, we'd want to go on here and throw on all of our dimensions. Model items. Entire model. Import all of those. Turn on all of my dimensions. And so we've got enough dimensions for a machinist to actually make this thing now. At least that's what I think. It's a pretty simple part. So don't follow that example as to how to dimension stuff. But I can go and I can save this as a JPEG to my desktop. Pump JPEG. I want to have low compression. Have this have it be a print capture at 300 dpi, which is pretty typical. Blah blah blah. Okay, let's hope that works. And so yes, that JPEG worked. Again, the dimensioning isn't done very well because I did not take my time. And here we go. Format, word wrap, in front of text or behind text, either one works. I'm going to go ahead and crop this to get rid of the title block. If you've got yourself a really nice title block, please keep it. Sweet. Very nice. Cool. Great. And then I'll send this to the back. Great. So now, future employer knows I know how to dimension things properly, hopefully, if you take your time. I know how to analyze things. I know how to make things look cool. I also have a bit of a writing sample, and you can have this go as long as you want or as short as you want. And then perhaps we can insert some page numbers at the bottom, bottom of the page. And let's find one that looks, again, looks pretty cool. I don't know. Boom, go with that one. Yeah, there we go. Sweet. And so what I'm doing right now is repositioning things so that I can minimize the amount of white space on this document. So I'm moving things around. I'm not lining things up. I'm making it a little bit messy intentionally so that your eyes stay busy. As people flip through your design portfolio, you want them to keep guessing. You want them to keep looking intently at what you've got going on instead of just getting the whole picture. In many situations, you will want them to get the entire picture in a quick glance, but this attracts them. Their eyes never get bored. And so I kind of like that. Cool. I think that actually looks pretty cool for Microsoft Word. So I'm going to hop over here. And I'm going to sit here, and I know there's a little bit of a delay, so I'm just going to sit and ask if anyone has specific questions, things that I can run through real quick. But you see, I mean, that took me an hour because I was messing around, speaking and making food all at the exact same time. So that was a pretty simple part. Now, if you've created, let me read this on my phone. Yeah, someone just asked, can they use things that they've created in the past? Of course. A lot of these SolidWorks classes that we have here at OU, they will have you create impellers. They'll have you create something as simple as this, a pump holder. Dr. Baldwin's class may have you create different pipes and bends and threads and all kinds of stuff. All of that stuff, if you're not out in industry yet, you can certainly use it in your design portfolio. You're a student, Boeing or Raytheon or Textron or ConocoPhillips, or they don't expect you as a design engineer or as an engineer to have designed an entire vehicle on your own by now. You're still in school. You've got projects going on, which are great. They expect to see some of those projects that you've got. And so, you know, if you wanna ask questions, just feel free to question Dr. Baldwin and say, hey, can I use this particular drawing in a thing? But you made it, so you can throw it into your design portfolio. I think Josiah just joined. I hope you can hear us. You can use the chat over here if you'd like. We're just wrapping things up, but I can do a brief summary of everything that we've been through today. And yeah, you don't necessarily have to turn anything on. Yeah, I usually share the screen, and so I'll go back to sharing the screen. Okay, perfect. So what we did today really quick, and so this is all recorded, and I've got about 10 people. I've got about 10 people just on YouTube, people that you can't see in the chat, but just people who are looking and who maybe they're on their cell phone looking, or they don't have Google Hangouts, but they're definitely looking at the cast right now, and they're emailing me questions. And then I've got Josiah and I've got Jack in the chat. So Josiah, what we did today was kind of just walk through a simple SolidWorks example of creating what I called a pump holder, a very simple geometry to keep it quick for people who aren't super familiar with with SolidWorks. So it was just a couple extrusions and a cut that says JB Pumps, the name of our fake company. We kind of walked through how to throw different finishes on here. So this black finish is actually a super glossy car paint. Then the red finish is a red powder coat. And so we went from that into looking at how to add different cameras. So camera view, how to look at your part using different cameras. So this is a wide angle camera, and so we can kind of zoom in there and have a lot of perspective at 24 millimeters. But eventually what we got to was rendering this thing out, and then we put this together. It's page 1 of a simple design portfolio. And so I think to myself, if I'm walking into a job fair, a career fair, and I want a job as a design engineer, whether it's for an aircraft company or automotive company or even working in the oil and gas industry, and my boss comes to me and says, I want you to design this holder, we're going to sell it to customers, create some drawings for the machinists, prove to me that it works and won't break. This entire page to a future employer says that you potentially know how to run through all of those things. So that rendering right there, I zoomed in a little bit too close, but that rendering has the detail of the powder coat in it. I hope you can see that. It's also got some of the gloss, the glossiness from the automotive paint. I zoomed in entirely too far again. All in one. Let's go ahead and open this up. And so the reason the background's black is because the background's perfectly transparent. We set that up in SolidWorks. So we got detail there. But yeah, we did all this in Microsoft Word. And a lot of people ask, you know, well, can you really create an entire design portfolio in Microsoft Word? Yes, there we go. I have Adobe Illustrator, or had Adobe Illustrator to do my design portfolio, but this is what I was able to do in Microsoft Word. I'll open mine up just as a side-by-side comparison here. I can't remember what I did with this thing. The design portfolio. I just got a new computer and I still haven't completely finished setting it up. But my design portfolio has rendering of an airplane on the cover, table of contents, a little introductory paragraph, and parts. Josiah will recognize a lot of these from Berge Wind Power, different things that we've developed, and I've gotten permission to use everything here. The aircraft designs, just custom private aircraft designs that I've done in SolidWorks. And everything's just well rendered, and nice drawings and all that kinds of stuff. Websites that I've made and sketches that I've made. So although the layout of my design portfolio is super simple and I did it in Adobe Illustrator, there's no reason why I had to do that in Illustrator. I mean, this right here, this page that you're looking at, is very similar to this right here. Or if we scroll up, this analysis page is just me saying, look, we performed some analysis on this flange, and it showed that, you know, there was extreme amounts of strain around the outside edge, and it's the same thing that we're showing here. And so that's one page. I think a good design portfolio for a job fair, a career fair, is between 10 and 20 pages, just so that people can see the range of things that you can design or what you've been working on. Some of those pages can be stuff that you've done in MATLAB, for example. If you've got a huge script, just a beautiful piece of code that you created in MATLAB, you're going to want to take a screen grab of that and put it into your design portfolio. Make 1 or 2 of the pages, 4 of the pages about stuff that you've done in different programs, like ANSYS, MATLAB, Pro-E, Creo, you know, whatever you're using. And so this is just an example of what we did. And so it took us 45 minutes to get from nothing, absolutely nothing, to creating the part, to testing the part with some realistic parameters, to rendering the part, and knowing how to change camera views around and what's not. Again, guys, I'm just talking because I'm getting emails, and it takes a little while for them to come through from the people who can't use the chat, but people who are just viewing. Yeah, someone asked about getting your portfolio printed or hosted. I use a company called blurb.com just because they're really, really cheap. And so Blurb will allow you to, Blurb will give you the size or use your letter size format from Microsoft Word and have you import as a PDF. So you can export a PDF from Microsoft Word. You import it in Blurb as a PDF. And you can tell them how you want it bound. You can tell them what glossiness you want on the pages. I do a semi-gloss on mine just so that it's not glossy and attracting fingerprints or being too distracting, and it's not flat and it doesn't look dull. So semi-gloss is pretty cool. So I do that, and mine. No, I can't remember where I put my design portfolio, but my design portfolio is about 22 pages, and that was $5, $5, or $4 for one. And the more you print, the cheaper it becomes. And so ideally, you'd want to grab that if you're sending a thank you note, or if you're just randomly getting in touch with HR at some company. You'd want to send that in a package with your resume, maybe your cover letter, and say, please enjoy a sample of my design portfolio. I'm telling you, it works, and it gets your name to the front of the conversation. I happened to do it at the career fair. I keep telling you guys, I walked around with a resume that looked exactly like everyone else's. School, volunteer, work. Of course, I've done a whole lot more than that, but again, they expect me to be a student. They just want to see the standard resume, and maybe you got an award here or there. They don't even pay attention. But when you bring out this design portfolio, and you're showing them your work, it's something that they can believe in, and they can see that you can conduct all these things, analysis, and use all these programs. So do that. Print it, mail it out with your resumes. Have the PDF, upload it to your LinkedIn. That's a great place to put it. Everyone should have a LinkedIn. I'm going to keep advocating for that because I've gotten amazing opportunities to see great things through LinkedIn. Or you can export the Microsoft Word files and upload them to any portfolio website. There's one called Behance. And if you want that, you can email me and I'll send out the link. But yeah, so you put it wherever you want, and but send it out there as a representation of yourself, and then it'll be fine. Let's see. Got another email. SolidWorks. Okay, so the best way to get SolidWorks, as far as I know, is either through OUIT, and you'd probably have to go over into EL, the engineering lab. It's across the road from Felger, across Felger Street. And it's up the stairs in EL, and you can request a copy there. That's the last mechanism of getting SolidWorks that I know of. I know Dr. Chang, his office is in Felger. You may want to go talk to him and see if he can set you up with a copy of SolidWorks. Other than that, there are sources online. I'm not going to comment on the legality of said sources. There's also the SolidWorks student version that you can buy online. It's well worth it. And it comes with all the SolidWorks support and a lot of the plugins and add-ins. So that's worth looking into. But either Dr. Chang or directly go to OUIT, and you should have access to it. The computer labs on campus all have SolidWorks, all have Microsoft Word, all have Adobe Illustrator. I've checked even up to today, and they were all working. So if we need to get together and do that, then we can always do that. Yeah, so someone's asking again for the design hour if I can meet them in a certain place on campus and do this essentially while sitting on campus in case they have the time to come. I'm open to doing that if I can get a couple people to commit that they want to be on campus, maybe in the new computer lab in Felger, or even in the Capstone Cafe, which is in the basement of Felger 2, opposite that computer lab. I'd be willing to meet there and do all of this with the microphones running and guide you to creating some of these pages. Again, this was just one page that we created today, but you saw how fast it came together, quickly it came together. And we can do a whole lot in the span of an hour or two sitting on campus. Yeah, so just email me and let me know if you'd like. Okay. Yeah, good question. And so there's a guy here in the chat room, and again, this is why you should be, if you're reading this and you're not in the chat room, or you're hearing this and you're not in the chat room, you're wasting time because we could have had all these questions answered. Jack is actually really good at Autodesk Inventor, I think it is, and I've never touched the thing. And so many of the things that he can do in Autodesk, you can also do it in SolidWorks, and vice versa. Once you know one CAD software package, the others become easy. Maybe not perfectly easy. Jack says, I pretend really hard like I'm good at Inventor at least. He's actually really good. I mean, I've seen some of the stuff that he's done. So, and Inventor is a robust piece of software too. So Inventor and SolidWorks, once you know one of them and you can actually use one, the other becomes pretty simple. The biggest part for me in CAD is being able to visualize things in 3D and know what I'm trying to get to. Every CAD program has a function that's called cut. Every SolidWorks program, CAD program has a function that's called extrude, for example. So all of those things become really quickly accessible to you. Once you know one, you'll know the other. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, I see Josiah is kind of popping in and out. Josiah, do you have any specific questions, or you want me to show you anything really quick? I know you missed pretty much the walkthrough of what we did today, but I think next week we're gonna do something similar, and I'll get a design so that you can put it together in SolidWorks, and we can just talk about rendering stuff and making things look cool, and lighting in SolidWorks, and coloring, and all that kinds of stuff, and shadows. So if there's nothing else, I'll just hang on here for just like 3 more minutes in silence. My TV's running in the background here, but I'm just looking at the news versus reading it. This random talk with Jawanza. This is great. Okay, last email. Yeah, so someone just emailed and asked, do I send my resume out to companies, or do I wait for them to get to me? Me personally, I've never just randomly sent my resume in, although most companies do have a HR department that you can mail directly and just say, hey, you know, this is not a job application, this is just me showing, you know, I exist, and if you're doing some recruiting, it'd be nice to talk to you. And so you can mail it into HR departments, but I personally have never done that. I have, however, reached out to high-ranking engineers, maybe they're OU alums or something, and I say, hey, I'd potentially like a job at your company in the future. I'd like you to have a copy of my resume, and I email or mail it to them, and with a little thank you card or thank you note. And then I put my design portfolio in the back so that when they open that package, they go, okay, great, resume, blah, 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 design portfolio. Cool. And it's worked. The conversations I've generated over just having a simple 10, 20-page design portfolio are far more vast than the conversations I've ever had just on my resume. My resume doesn't show anything impressive. It really doesn't. And in engineering, we don't have fancy designs and a lot of leeway to do all kinds of cool stuff on your resume. So the design portfolio definitely does work. Okay, well, thanks for hanging out. I'm hoping that Dr. Sadiq will be with me next week, just kind of hanging out if he's got the time, which, you know, that's asking a whole lot. And I know he's having his class ask some of these questions through email, and so I guess those are the people who are looking through email or through YouTube. So I'm hoping to have him sitting here, or at least someone else. If it's not Dr. Sadiq, I'm definitely going to have maybe Mike Black from Jet Black Machining hanging out with us and just kind of answering some questions about design, the job application process, getting hired, what he likes to see on an applicant's resume, that kind of stuff. And so if there's anything else between now and then, please send me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to help you have this portfolio done within the next couple months, and then critique it. Even if you don't think you're the best at design, we can definitely look it over and position things where they need to be and get you a really nice product that you can walk around with at conferences and job fairs and mail out to HR departments. So I'm signing off. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.